Welcome, everyone. This is Jenna and Papa Hughes. This is your life podcast. Live intelligently, fun, and extraordinary. I would like you to tell us about this acronym or this motto that you always tell me about. D.N.A. Isn't this scientific? Tell us about it.
I know it sounds like a medical term, which everybody knows about the DNA of the anatomy, but in my younger years, in my teenage years, well into my 20s, I realized that DNA was what I am about to tell you about. Direction is nothing without action.
I like that.
That's where I came up with the theory of DNA, because I saw myself as being self-motivated amongst my school friends and just life in general. There was an attitude, particularly in the 60s, with pot smoking and drinking and the sexual revolution. The attitude was whatever. And I thought to myself, being goal-oriented, and in order to get things done, because I did work, I was not a loafer, and I worked during high school, and I always set my mind to get to where I wanted to go. I had to be motivated, but I had to put it in action. I just couldn't sit there and loaf and say, well, whatever. And I found that this was the attitude that was going on, and nothing would get done. The chores wouldn't get done. The car I bought, things needed to get fixed. There was money issues, because I was self-sufficient and self-supporting at an early age, 18 years of age. I didn't mooch off my parents. So I came up with this, how is it that I'm able to get things done, being goal-oriented, self-motivating, is because why? Direction is nothing without action.
And where did you come up with that?
Well, I finally came up with it when this self-realization, and when I met a young man, Tony Robbins, as you may all know, the motivational speaker. At that time, we crossed paths. I was selling real estate with Century 21, and he came to our office, and as a salesman, he had a little video monitor, and he wanted to share with everybody his mentor, who was a self-motivating speaker at that time, back in the 80s, who is Jim Rohn, who no one in this generation's heard of.
Okay.
But Jim Rohn, his whole thing was attitude makes a difference. And because your attitude, that's how you get things done. That's how you sell yourself. That's how you can move mountains and achieve higher goals. Because in order for things to change, your attitude has to change. And that was his whole thing. But behind that, Alan was putting together in his own mind the D.N.A. structure. And that is direction's nothing without action.
I think that's very true, because, first you need the attitude to be self-motivated, to
Correct.
have the mindset, and then what's next? It's direction. I remember that picture, by the way, with Tony Robbins and Mom, and you guys were at the beach. You must have been the one
Huntington Beach.
You were taking the picture since you weren't in the photos, so I remember.
We would go out there and have a beach party. We played volleyball, and it was just nothing but fun and camaraderie. Well, I joined the sales force, and we used to pack them in, I would say about 300 folks at night at the Bonaventure Hotel in downtown LA. It's still there. It exists, the hotel itself. And it was so memorable, and also a life experience for me that I still take on to this day. And I think about DNA as this. And I remember as a young man, I obviously am older than Tony Robbins by about 10 years, but I remember sitting in his office, which he was surrounded by all kinds of books, rags to riches. That's where his education came from. Books.
Self-taught.
Okay? Self-taught. He had no degrees. no college education, and there I was in college and studying to be all that I could be. But let's make it short here, folks. I sat there on his desk, I so vividly remember to this day, and I draw 2 lines on a piece of paper. I said, Tony, with all that we're talking about, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to get done, nothing's going to get achieved. And a lot of people who buy products today in these seminars and workshops, in 90 days they have buyer's remorse. Well, what's the problem? They don't have the D.N.A. And what is the D.N.A? I drew out 2 lines and I said, on the football goal, on that field, both teams know the direction, which way to go to win. And what's your objective? To win. And what's the goal? They know they got to get that ball to the halfway mark and then down to the 20-yard line and then reach that goal. But there you are, they got the direction, and the direction's nothing without action. And what do? They put in the strategy, they put in the gameplay, they put in all the tools that they learn, and what do? They initiate, they motivate, they inspirate. And what happens? Direction is nothing without action, and they go for the goal. That's what you have to do as an individual. And so, don't we have all kinds of tools today to do that? We have our calendars, we have our smartphones. Before, you had to have a Bible in corporate office called the Franklin book, and it was a calendar and you penciled in everything. Okay? Today you don't have to do that. You got your smartphone. We have so many tools to help us to get to where we need to go from point A to point B. But how is it that we're ending up what? Smart but broke? I'd rather be dumb, ugly, and filthy rich and have D.N.A.
So yeah, I think it probably just narrowing down to what is your goal, because sometimes we have so many goals and sometimes they're not realistic. So I think it's finding out what is that goal and is it realistic, and then going from there and using the tools like you were saying. So I think that's great, and it's an easy way to remember with that abbreviation, D.N.A. So thanks for sharing.
Also, another thing that comes into play is our emotions. And we are human beings. And I remember Jim Rohn used to tell us, if you want to be a top salesperson, there's only 10% that make all the sales for any sales group. Be it a sales carsman, used car lot, or new car lot selling cars, or in your own office if there's sales. Productivity comes usually out of the top 10%. Well, one of the things that you have to do to overcome these emotions that you have is that I don't feel like attitude. Excuse-titis disease. What is that? Oh, it's raining today. It's cloudy. It's overcast. I don't feel like going out and making sales. Well, Jim Rohn used to preach and teach us that if you want to be successful, volume in business is the key to success. We've all read that one way, somehow, some book or another. But what is it? You got to literally go out there and say, but I don't give a care if it's raining. You got to get out there and knock on doors. And what do? On a rainy day, you knock on 100 doors and hopefully you get 1 or 2 sales, while everybody else is sitting at home. So, going back to this discussion, D.N.A., you have to do what? You have to put it in action, whatever it takes. That's it for today.
As you can see, we definitely apply D.N.A. We are in the direction of starting this podcast. You can follow us at Life on YouTube channel and on SoundCloud. Thank you, everyone, for following us. Stay tuned.